Okay, classe. There is one more set of preterite that I would like to show you. And in my opinion, this is kind of the trickiest of the crazy preterite conjugations. So I wanted to show it to you on a video so that you can refer to it as many times as you need to. And hopefully it'll start to click for you. Okay, some of you have seen this last year. We spent some time on it. It's strange, it's weird, but it's something that we need to spend a little extra time on. So the first set is called verbs that change I to Y. Okay, it's not really a stem change. It's more of a spell change, and I think you'll understand why. It's pretty logical. If you notice the verbs that do this, verbs like leer, caer, creer, oír, poseer, and then verbs that end in uir, like concluir, atribuir, construir, contribuir again, distribuir, huir, and incluir. So if you notice these verbs, they're all either IR verbs or they are ER verbs. Okay, so that's what we're dealing with. Another thing they all have in common is they all have two vowels in a row in the infinitive, excuse me. So leer has the two E's, caer has AE, creer, two E's, oír, an O and an I, poseer has two E's together, and all of these that end in uir have that U and that I together. Okay, so here's what happens when we have those vowels together. As you can see with leer, there's a couple things happening in what I call downstairs. If I set this up like our apartment house, and I drew our lines here like our apartment house, right? I consider this downstairs. It's the L form and the AOS form. Well, notice that instead of the regular IO ending and IERON ending, we had to change the I to a Y. And so that's where that happened. But there's something else I want you to notice. We have more accent marks on these forms than in other verbs. Lei, that's regular, always there. Leíste, always not there. And what's happening is if we didn't have that, it would blend leíste. And we don't want it to sound like leíste. We want it to be leíste. So we have to stress that. Leyó or leyó, we're used to that. Having an accent over the O should not be difficult for us. And then leímos also has an accent. The ellos form right here is the only one that does not have an accent. Okay, so all of these verbs are going to do that because, let's look at oír. Oí, I heard. Oíste, did you hear? Oyó, now let's look if I didn't make that change. If I forgot to change that I to a Y, how would you even pronounce that, right? Oío, oío. So it's very logical to change that to a Y, oyó. We don't want oímos, we want oímos. And oyeron. Oyeron. They heard. Oyeron las noticias. They heard the news. Right? All right, so same thing is going to happen for these verbs that have UI. Concluí, accent. Concluiste, no accent. We don't need it. It doesn't blend like oíste would blend, so we don't need it. Okay, but we do have it down here in the ella form. Concluyó. Concluimos, don't need it. Concluyeron, don't need it, but we do have the I to Y downstairs. One of the things you may have heard me say before is no, 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 three vowels in a row with the preterite. So if we didn't change that I to a Y, we would have three vowels with that, or we would have three vowels with that, and that is no, 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 three vowels in a row. So we change the I to Y. All right, so let's move to the last funny thing going on in the preterite here. Okay, these are practice. We'll look at some of these together. And I am on page 13, or what is page 42 of your packet. Okay, page 42 of your packet. These are stem changing verbs in the preterite. These are tough. These are difficult. These are not boot verbs. Okay, let's talk about what a boot verb is. A boot verb is a verb that has a stem change. And if we were to outline where the stem occurs, it makes a boot, right? Let's take dormir in the present tense, that O to you, right? Duermo, duermes, duerme, dormimos, and duermen. So it occurs in every form, except the nosotros and the vosotros, if we use that. So we call it a boot verb. There are no boot verbs in the preterite. None. They don't exist. Okay? Look here. It says stem changing verbs, also what we know as boot verbs, that end in AR do not exist in the preterite. They're regular. They're just regular preterite. Aste, o, amos, ardon. Nothing happening in the boot. Nothing happening in the stem. Nothing. Regular. Okay? That's easy. That's good news. Same with an ER verb. An ER verb will not be a stem changer. It'll be something else difficult, maybe like hacer and poder and tener, right? We've got some of those tricky ones. But a boot verb like perder, that means to lose, right? Yo pierdo. In the present tense, I lose. Siempre pierdo en ping pong, for example. Pero anoche no perdí. Anoche no perdí, mi esposo perdió. Y yo gané. Normalmente yo pierdo. So in the present tense, it's a boot verb. It's a stem changer. But in the preterite, it is not, because there is no boot verbs in the preterite. Okay, but there are stem changers. There are stem changers. So what happens? Okay, a few things must be true. First of all, in order for a verb to be a stem changer in the preterite, sorry, I'm distracting you with my attempt at erasing here. Okay, so in order for a verb to be a stem changer, it must end in IR. Okay, so ask yourself that. Does it end in IR? Because if it doesn't, it's not going to do what we're talking about. It's going to stay. It's going to do a normal thing, or maybe it's irregular, but it is not a stem changer. Okay, so is it an IR verb, and is it a boot verb in the present? So two things must be true. One, it has to be an IR verb. Two, it has to be a boot verb in the present. Okay, so if those two things are true, then here's what's going to happen with this verb. If it is an E to I or an E to IE in the present, it will be E to I downstairs. That means only in the L and the ellos forms. El, ella, usted, ellos, ellas, ustedes. Oops. It will be E to I. Okay, only E to I. E to IE does not exist in the preterite. If it is an O, to UE, boot verb in the present, and an IR verb, it will be O to U only in those downstairs forms, in the el, ella, usted, and the ellos, ellas, ustedes. Okay, let's look over here at what we're talking about. Look at sentir, for example. Sentir means to feel. In the present tense, it's yo me siento, or yo siento, tú sientes, el, ella, usted siente, nosotros sentimos, right? And ellos sienten, present tense. In the preterite, our endings are the same, y, iste, yo, imos, ieron, but something is happening. This E becomes an I only in the ellos, and the ustedes. Sentí, sentiste, sintió, sentimos, sintieron. All of these verbs right here are going to do what sentir does. All of these verbs right here are E to IE in the present in the form of a boot, but in the preterite they are E to I downstairs only. Downstairs meaning the el, ella, usted form and the ellos, ellas, ustedes form. Okay, so if we look down here, we've got O to UE. If it's O to UE in the present, it's going to be O to U, downstairs only in the preterite. And there's only 3 verbs that do that. Dormir, morir, and one more I taught you guys last year, podrir, which means to rot. So remember, there is a U for you, the stem changer, sleep, you die, you rot downstairs, because downstairs is where that change occurs. Kind of morbid, but if it helps you remember, that's what it's all about. Okay, the last kind is E to I in the present tense, sirvo, sirves, sirve, servimos, and sirven. And it will also be E to I in the preterite tense, however, only downstairs. So let's look at pedir. If I ordered pizza, yo pedí una pizza y mi esposo pidió ensalada. Pedí, pidió. E to I only in the L form. Y los niños, ellos pidieron pollo y papas fritas. Okay, so that happens E to I only in the L form and the ellos form. Okay? Reír is an interesting verb. It's a little different because of the fact that it's kind of a combination of the 2 things we've talked about today because of the 2 vowels in a row. Reír, freír, and sonreír. So what you can see is happening here is the E changes to an I right here, right? But we don't need 2 I's like in our ending. If we followed the rules exactly, it would be rio, because there's our ending and that's just crazy. So it's just rio and rieron for the ending. Okay, and freír and sonreír are going to do the same thing. We will practice this. We will speak using this. My goal and your goal should be that if you ever, for example, said el pidió, that just sounds really bad to you, right? El vestió, no, el se vistió rápidamente para salir para la escuela. All right, so we're going to practice with this, but I want you to have these notes on hand because this is kind of a crazy concept when it comes to the preterite. Okay, gracias, buena suerte.